Hello and welcome to Inside the Americas. I'm Annette Young. Coming up, we take a look back at what made headlines in the Americas during what many have described as an extraordinarily tumultuous year. And in a historic move, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe visits the US naval base at Pearl Harbor, offering condolences to the victims of Japan's attack on the base 75 years ago. Also, the loss of one of Hollywood's royalty, with tributes pouring in after the death of actor and author Carrie Fisher, best known, of course, for her role as Princess Leia in Star Wars, who died 4 days after suffering a massive heart attack. But as 2016 draws to a close, we take a look back at some of the major events which took place in the Americas. This year, of course, seeing a significant thaw in the US-Cuban relationship, the death of Fidel Castro, and also a change of guard in Brazil. Not to mention that surprise win of US President-elect Donald Trump. Luke Schrago and Luke Brown have more.
2016's been a year to remember for the Americas. Some events were expected, others coming out of the blue. For the first time in its history, the Olympic Games were held in South America, placing host Brazil under intense scrutiny. The Games themselves were overshadowed for numerous reasons. First, a doping scandal on an unprecedented scale. In July, revelations surfaced of a state-sponsored program by Moscow. As a result, 188 Russian athletes were kicked out of the competition. The festive mood in Brazil was also dampened by the Zika virus, caused by mosquito bites. The virus is particularly dangerous for unborn babies and can cause microencephaly, a condition which can be fatal. Brazil was also rocked by a massive political crisis. President Dilma Rousseff was impeached and removed from office in late August for inflating public accounts to hide the country's budget deficit. Vice President Michel Temer took over, and with the help of the Senate, pushed through a spending freeze on social programs. Neighboring Venezuela too experienced moments of chaos. President Nicolas Maduro's popularity plunged as an economic crisis caused by low oil prices gripped the country. The opposition has called for a recall referendum, but the government has done everything to stall the process. International figures found themselves on the defensive after the Panama Papers revelations in April. 11.5 million confidential documents were made public. They showed how the world's richest took advantage of tax havens to stash their cash. 200,000 clients of Mossack Fonseca from around the world, including heads of state, were named and shamed. Another scandal, this time in the US, as cost-cutting measures led to a water crisis. Flint was placed under a federal state of emergency for 8 months. This after the city switched its water source from Detroit to the Flint River. The change resulted in elevated levels of lead in drinking water. 12 people died, and 80 others were left seriously contaminated. In July, 49 people were killed and 53 others wounded at a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida. The gun attack was claimed by the Islamic State group, leaving the Pulse nightclub massacre the deadliest mass shooting in US history. On the 4th of October, Hurricane Matthew struck the Caribbean nation of Haiti. Nearly 600 people were killed and the country's harvest was decimated. 175,000 people lost their houses in the storm. The hurricane exacerbated the existing economic crisis caused by the earthquake in January 2010. Over 60% of Haiti's population lives below the poverty line. Then in November, the United States delivered an election surprise on an unprecedented scale. The Republican candidate for president, Donald Trump, was elected to the country's highest office, beating former First Lady and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. The election saw Donald Trump triumph in the Electoral College, despite rival Clinton winning the popular vote by nearly 3 million ballots. Meanwhile, a new chapter began in Cuba after the death of Fidel Castro on November 25th at the age of 90.
We've just learned that the leader of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro, has died.
Cubans spent 9 days mourning the loss of El Comandante, the man who led the country's revolution in 1959. Castro had handed over power to his brother Raúl in 2008. An outpouring of emotion in Brazil too, where almost the entire Chapecoense football team perished in a plane crash in Colombia. 71 people died as the plane ran out of fuel. It's thought the crash could have been down to human error. The Americas also lost world-renowned musical talent, with legendary singer-songwriter Prince dying of an overdose in April. Canadian wordsmith Leonard Cohen also passed away at age 82, but not before releasing one last album, where he mulled over his own mortality. It's not just been bad news for the music world. American singer Bob Dylan was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature for his poetic lyrics, a decision that divided opinion. Dylan took time to acknowledge the award and was unable to make it to the ceremony. Juan Manuel Santos, however, did make it to Stockholm to pick up his Nobel Peace Prize, awarded for his efforts to end the 5-decade-long conflict with FARC guerrillas. 4 years of talks in Cuba allowed the government and FARC rebels to sign a peace deal. First rejected by a small majority of voters in a referendum on the 2nd of October, a final version of the treaty was accepted by Colombian lawmakers in November.
Moving on, and Argentina's former president, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, has been charged over corruption allegations. This being the second time that she's been indicted in less than a year. Now, 75 years ago, Japanese warplanes attacked the US base of Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, an event that dragged the United States into World War II. And in a historic move, the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has visited the US naval base at Pearl Harbor, the Japanese leader offering condolences to the victims of that attack, the Japanese having devastated much of the base, killing more than 2,400 Americans. Laurent Berstecker reports on the tale of one survivor.
It was a day that changed the course of history. On December 7th, 1941, hundreds of Japanese warplanes attacked the Pearl Harbor U.S. naval base, killing more than 2,400 people in under 2 hours. Alfred Rodriguez was serving as an officer in the U.S. Navy. At 96 years old, he's one of the tragedy's last remaining survivors.
I just sat down to have breakfast when the general alarm sounded and the word got out, "Man your battle stations, this is not a drill." They repeated it about 3 times. We all ran out to the armory to get our rifle, our ammunition, and we could see the planes up above with the red circles on the bottom. We knew it was the Japanese planes.
The attack, which remains one of the deadliest on American soil, is seen as a historical turning point. It dragged the U.S. into World War II and ultimately led to the first atomic bombs being dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 70 years later, the U.S. and Japan have now grown into close allies. A friendship Shinzo Abe will be keen to see continue into the next administration.
And more sad news from Hollywood, with actor and author Carrie Fisher, best known, of course, for her role as Princess Leia in Star Wars, having died this just 4 days after she suffered a massive heart attack on a flight from London to Los Angeles. She was 60 years old. Alexander Orcott tells us more.
She's out. You're supposed to wait.
Carrie Fisher made her big-screen debut in 1975's Shampoo, but it was 2 years later that she took on the role that would turn her into an icon.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Carrie Fisher.
She would also star in The Blues Brothers and When Harry Met Sally, among others, but she never managed to escape from Princess Leia's shadow. Bold and brilliant on-screen, she was also influential off it, serving as one of the most sought-after script doctors in Hollywood. The actress also wrote books and frequently talked in public, often discussing her bipolar diagnosis and struggles with drug addiction. Born into Hollywood royalty, Carrie Fisher was the daughter of singer Eddie Fisher and actress Debbie Reynolds. But her father left to be with Elizabeth Taylor when Carrie was just 2 years old. During her stage show, she explained this for a younger audience.
Think of Eddie as Brad Pitt, Debbie as Jennifer Aniston, and Elizabeth as Angelina Jolie. Does that help?
Fisher herself was in a string of failed relationships. Briefly married to singer-songwriter Paul Simon in the 1980s, she had a daughter, Billy, in 1992, with the talent agent Brian Lord. This year, she also caused a sensation, revealing she had a 3-month affair with co-star Harrison Ford while they were filming 4 decades ago. More than 30 years after The Return of the Jedi, Carrie Fisher reprised her role as Leia in Star Wars Episode 7, reuniting her with her on-screen family.
Are you guys really like brothers and sisters? I said, yeah, we fight all the time. We're not speaking to each other for years at a time.
Now we're not speaking to each other.
But we have a shared experience, and darn it, I will defend her with my life.
Carrie Fisher will mostly be remembered for just one on-screen role, but it was one of the most iconic female leads in film history. Her death came shortly after suffering a heart attack on a flight from London to LA. Filming for Star Wars Episode 8 was already wrapped, so while she may have gone to a galaxy far, far away, fans will see her one last time in December 2017.
Sad news indeed. And that's it for now from us here at France 24. We wish all of you a very happy new year. Until our next show, bye for now.